My name is Eric, and as I have talked about many times, YouTube has a bit of a malware problem. As we can see, if you search for any number of keywords, especially if you sort for new videos, you'll find a trove of identical videos all promoting the same malware. Well, that's interesting. These have a different length, so what's going on at the end here? Now, how these are spread and how this sort of creates a weird network is what I'm going to look at. Now, okay, so I'm guessing they changed the speed of the video. Some of them have even stolen my videos because they have the keywords in them and it's a bot, so they don't even watch the video to realize that I'm just telling them it's a scam. So, no, Valorant hacks, Valorant cheat, Valorant trigger bot, Valorant aimbot wall hack. Now let's take a look at this channel. Yep. So we had okay, we'll go further back. This may actually be a brand new channel then, so this is a difference where they may have actually set up a channel for the sake of doing this. And of course, if we go through, we can see the same link. Now, while I can rage at the fact that this channel, which I talked about a month ago, is still up and still distributing malware, what it does allow me to do is something we didn't previously have, which is we can see that effectively, and we'll go through when we go and analyze the data, every single channel doing this is in fact ran in the same campaign. Because this is a common question I get. How many, as far as these are concerned, the simple mass uploaded self-replicating ones, it seems like there's basically one group doing all of this. From what we have found from experimentation, while I can say generally YouTube are very good at removing problem videos, the channel report feature on YouTube just doesn't work. It plain and simple doesn't work. It doesn't matter how many people do it, it just is ignored. And it seems to have been that way for years. So as a result, currently, malicious links in the About section of a channel, unless YouTube manually intervene, which they probably will, because I've sent this to some people who work at YouTube, so we will get this taken down, this will stay up. And then they can just rotate the link here. And they've got this nice vanity URL. So these are being uploaded every couple of minutes across a variety of channels. And here's one of the hacked ones. And the way we can kind of tell is the About page, first of all, it has some subscribers, and the About page is never going to match what they're uploading. We can go back and we can see where the transition happened. Where here, we went from some sort of football game being played on mobile to a 5M cheat menu. And this actually seems to be a different bunch because they've got a different password and they got a different link. So in a bit, we'll get to actually testing these. Here's another one that looks like it may have been a freshly created channel. And they've even put a watermark on it. So as we'll see when we get to analyzing the data, it seems like there has been a bit of a shift in that the hacked channels are potentially becoming harder to come by. And the funny thing is, and as we can see, pretty much all of these channels will upload the same thing, but we can just change the search from Valorant to Sea of Thieves, which is a different game, and we can see that the exact same video is showing the exact same thing. And this one is showing the same payload that you can get from this youtube.com/download links. And then we get a different one. This one has a custom thumbnail, and this appears to be a hacked channel, and there's a bit more effort put in. It's got the same password, but it's a bit different. So it's all cool to look at these here. But what I wanted to do, and what I started working on in the previous video, is this. I've actually made a script that can search these keywords. Now, the reason why we're limited to a few keywords is because YouTube's API, unfortunately, has a low rate limit. So we have to be sort of careful in what we're doing. So these are the ones that I'm going with. Sea of Thieves hack, Valorant hack, and Fortnite skin swapper, because they have a relatively low false positive rate. I wrote a very simple algorithm to check if they're false positives. That's sort of how we're doing it. Now we're going to try and do a bit more analysis. So what we have here, of course, is regex to get any links in any of these descriptions. Now this query, of course, because the amount of data we have has actually massively skyrocketed. When we started this, it was not that much, but we've already got over 10,000 unique video IDs. So how do we analyze this more efficiently? Well, first of all, let's just look at recent uploads, and we can potentially look at changes. So let's see what the most common links, malicious links, posted on YouTube in the last week are. So in SQL, we do this by adding a constraint, or not adding a filter. We go and. What I always like to do is create a .sql, because I don't like using ORM, so I always like to create a .sql file so I can remember what my schema is called. So this is the one we want. Capture time, upload, we'll go with upload date. And I just realized I made a silly mistake. Now, technically speaking, the ordering here wouldn't hugely matter, but the difference is that if we were to put this here, if we get the check here instead of there, it prevents this expensive query from having to run on all of this. Now, the obvious thing we can notice from this, and some of these are actually going to be from templates, but the ones at the top are the most interesting. So perhaps the biggest thing is that while the download links one is very prevalent, there's also download midnight, which is another scam using the YouTube method. So let's now go over to the VM and take a look at what we can get from these two beautiful, legitimate pieces of software. So now that we've got the VM going, we can try this out. And we can see, so it's got the same format. I obviously can't confirm if this is the same person or not, but this is a near identical design. So PS Word 2024, and then we go to a media file where we can download Midnight. Now I've actually got this VM because, subscribe by the way if you want to see it, I've got a new project coming up with Hudson Rock where we're going to actually try and follow my stolen data. So I've actually got some bait data embedded in this Chrome. So at some point in the future, we're going to be able to see exactly what data is being stolen. And now we have got fireohack.raw ready to go. So now let's see what we get with this wonderful file. So we get an 800 kilobyte, which is just over the virus total limit file that needs to be run as administrator. And the fact that this compressed so well is really all we need to know that this isn't real. But let's see what we get. And of course I got MITM proxy going, so if this does turn out to be an info stealer, we're going to see everything that it steals in real time. A lot of these also, as I've found out, install a miner. Oh, and this looks like Luma, given it's using a .shop domain. I love how they have these kind of off names, like colosapatron.shop. Oh, and then that redirects to this, where we get our stolen data, the IP address of our VM, IP address again, IP address, and some, oh right, because that's going to be echoed back. And here there's the software installed, the contents of the browser, and then we can see some requests showing that a miner has been installed. So that's what the first one does. Now let's just see that download-links is doing the same thing that it did previously. It looks like the same file, but there's no harm in testing it again. I'm also going to do a search for this character in channels, because I have a feeling a lot of these are going to be other ways of getting to malware. Okay, this is actually a slightly different file than the previous one I downloaded, but I imagine it's just an updated stealer. And it's still got the loader.exe, which is a common name. Of course, common name for real cheats as well, but let's see what we got. Okay, support XML. That's good to see. And a different, it's the same stealer, but it's got a different command and control. Is it the same person? We don't know. And then it launches the XMRig API, which is a different endpoint. Okay, so let's try out some of these others. So application page is another one. Download L'Orealis. These seem to be the two main offenders. So freeshop.vip/setup. Oh, and these guys have actually chosen a different password. And now we're on softkeyget.com, which looks totally legit. It will never not be funny how many of these actually, they stop worrying about the consistency, but this was probably a fake crack. And here we've got fowme.ru. We're going to probably have to disable MITM proxy while we run the downloads. Press the download button, and this one's got the password of 2024. And is that a DigitalOcean logo we got going on there? Okay. So this is the first. Now it seems like this one might have a randomly generated name. And then there's a zip within a zip. And this is probably where the password goes. Or in fact, we didn't need the password. Oh, and let's turn this back on. Stable application setup.exe. Anti-malware check good.top. What on earth is... Well, you know, if it says it's anti-malware check.top, it's not a fake domain. And that is a different payload, which I'm also going to download up here in case it's interesting. So then we go to Microsoft enable true get.top, which is another very credible domain. And is this more base64? No, this is instructions. So this is an older generation stealer that uses this method. Okay, and it's giving this information. And now the stealer is getting right to work. To me, this looks like it could be a red line. Beautiful. Okay, so now let's see what the other very legit looking application does. sinstall.zip. Okay, we need to use 7-zip for this one. Okay, I just ran sinstall, and immediately we notice a bunch of shop domain hit. Oh, and this is another one of these. Now I'm just taking a look at this 777.exe file because this seemed like it might not be entirely crypted. Okay, so we get this, whatever this is some big trove of data that's not being well interpreted, but the main interest here would be if this is being referenced anywhere. Okay, so now to see if this 777 is an interesting thing, I'm just going to run it in a sandbox. So it's another good use of a sandbox is if you're taking apart malware and you want to see if this exe actually contains what you think it does. We can just put it in here, see what happens. Yep, this is the stealer, and we can see that it spawns this conhost.exe, which is the real conhost. We can dump the memory of regassembly, which could show something interesting. Could be injecting the payload in there. These lovely domains, anti-malware check good.top is clearly legit. So we do have the second stage here. Then we can take the dump. We can open this up in Binary Ninja. And while this is still a bit messy, now we have at least the strings that definitely look. Yep, this is a part of the process of extracting our Chrome cookies. So this takes string. We can also see where our command and control server is. These guys like to use .top domains, which, by the way, are currently in trouble with ICANN because they have such a high degree of abuse tolerance. Still going to be an absolute mess to read. We can get an idea that there's a function that is putting those various, because I followed the Chrome steal function around, and we can see that essentially what this is probably the function where the actual stealing is happening. This is another unknown, but we can potentially figure out where. The way we do that is we see these globals. And we see, okay, where is this global being set? Because these all have similar names, sometimes it's helpful to give them a name that's a bit easier to follow. Global. You can just do that. You can see our global is being set here. Now, unfortunately, we don't know what this one does either. But this seems to be the function that sets these. So I don't entirely know what the number here is for and how the first string relates to the second. And there's a lot of really weird control flow stuff going on here. And some additional constants that seem to be getting added. But just from looking at the strings here, we can get a rough idea of what's probably going on in these. And some of these are also functions. So this is definitely well obfuscated code. But we can see enough here to understand that it's decrypting Chrome cookies, it's extracting the cookies in the tokens, it knows where this preferences would be so that it could get into the tokens. So it's definitely an info stealer. So that is going to be all for this part of the investigation. So what we have learned. Well, first of all, YouTube has a pretty big gap in its policy enforcement, and that is that channels with no videos that don't comment, which you may think, well, how can they do anything? Well, with the help of another channel, are basically invincible right now. That needs to be fixed. I've also, from looking through this, seen that YouTube are pretty good at removing the videos, but there is some ease of just creating a new account. And I guess the other thing I've noticed is from the month ago when I made the previous video on this subject, it seems like hacked accounts are being used less, which is something I've heard from people in the scene, that it's becoming harder and harder to steal Google accounts. So as a result, what they're doing instead is simply registering burner accounts and botting the views with hacked computers. I've noticed that because while analyzing the data, I noticed that many of these videos' views would drop. So that is going to be all for this video. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more content, such as our upcoming partnership video with Hudson Rock, where we actually follow the stolen data from the bait and see where it ends up. You're not going to want to miss it. That's all for now. Bye.